All of these cards were made using my scraps. Okay, today we're going to make, with these squares that I chopped up this paper, we're going to make a pinwheel. And I have, these are cut 1 1/4 inch each. And to make it a little bit easier, we're going to put this on here, which will help us to make our pinwheel. And these are cut 2 3/4. So let me get those attached. I just wanted to show you that I am using my scraps. Hope I got that on straight. And that my system is working so far. There's always room for improvement. Now when we put these on, let's hope I can remember how to do this. It's going to leave a little edge. We're only going to put glue on the outer edge. We're going to alternate the colors. Okay, I want the purple this time. I'm going to turn my card because it's easier for me to work that way. Now I want the gold. It will have the look of looking like a pinwheel, like they do in sewing. And this is a great way, whoops, wrong color. I need to have that color. Great way to use up scraps. Since I already glued that, we'll stick it here. Remember, we're only putting glue on the outside edge. Okay, this last one is this, so I need the glue on this side. Now, see, those are together. Now right here, this is where you have to reach in and flip up this edge. Oops-a-daisy. There. And if you feel like you need to go back in and just put a little bit on the edges, you can do that. It just needs a tiny dab. Okay, but that's good. Now, it needs something in the center. And we'll pick out a flower. You know what? You might be able to do like double flower. What do we think about that? Maybe a different color. One a little bit closer. That's no. I don't know if I have any of that color. These are a bunch of flowers that I cut out that I haven't yet put away. That could work, but I'm looking for something a little bit closer. There, I like that. That will work. Okay, so we have to put something here in the middle. If they don't line up perfectly, that's fine, because we're going to hide it with the flower center. And I think it needs one more thing. I think we will put a little jewel, if I can get this off of here, right in the center. Came from the dollar store, but anyways, there's that. Okay. Now, I thought it would be a good idea to replicate the color. So I have cut this out, and I thought that might be a little too much. So we'll put the dark on there. That looks good. And then I picked out from my scraps a strip that I showed you, and I stamped it in the center, and now I'm just going to cut it to fit. I'm right-handed, so I want to do it this way. Okay, I didn't cut that exactly good. Let's check it out before we glue it, make sure it's right. I cut up a tiny bit more here, and that's how we get it centered. I will throw those away. I decided this will be a thank you card. So we have used up our scraps and we made a pretty card, and it's all done. And these little tiny pieces are going into the trash because they're so small they cannot be used. All right, I decided to make another card in the same papers, the same colors. Since I had cut that paper, I thought I might as well make a card out of it. We'll just make the card base that color. And I wanted to use the squares, so because I cut up a bunch of them, I could make another pinwheel card, but I want to do something a little different. And I pre-measured how many squares would fit on here, and then I figured out, you know, how to frame it. So I pre-cut these so that it would fit right, because I placed my little squares down to just try to figure out how much space was needed there. That's how I worked it out. So let's start putting these on. Just want to make sure I got this right. Yep, the spacing should be even. Oh, I should have my silicone mat here for gluing these little pieces. And we're just doing sort of a patchwork quilt, sort of. Just alternating the pattern. Again, to use up the scraps. And then I peeked through my little bin of pre-cut labels, and I picked out one that I liked, and I stamped it. And so this is going to be my sentiment. So I'm using up my scraps. And there was one other thing I was going to do, and I forgot. I was going to actually put some purple around there, because I was going to pull out something from here, because I know I'd thrown a piece of that in here. So, oh well. It's glued. It's done. It's fine. It could be better with the little purple, but maybe it's just not needed. There is something else you can do with squares, and I'm going to share that with you now, using the same colors and using squares. This time I'm using 1-inch squares that I cut out with a punch. And this is a quilt pattern. You can definitely see the embossing design right there. So I made a bunch of cards with this pattern. This was using up the leftover pieces, and then I embellished it with some of my scraps. Having a punch to cut out squares is really the best thing. This is such a time saver. I like it better than dies because you can really punch out things really fast. So I prefer punches over die cuts. Although I love die cuts and they're great for special things, but when you want to cut out a massive amount of things like squares. So I've been cutting out squares with my scraps. You might even recognize some of these papers because I used these in a previous video on a craft project of a Victorian paper room. I usually sort them by color. Here's pinks, purples, got a little bit of burgundy in it. And then I bag them up. These are some blues and purples. These are some greens and pinks. There's a little bit of burgundy in there. And this is yellow, gold, and purple. And I also did a bunch in greens. And this is what we are doing with it. We're making a patchwork with these colors. The concept of a quilt would be really great for a sympathy card or even a birthday card with a note like, "You're so special," because quilting is sewing. I am also a quilter. Get some regular computer paper. These are 1-inch squares. I cut up some computer paper so it's thin because we're going to do multiple layers. Here's 2 that are done, and I chose this background. I will cut it in half, so I use the whole sheet. This will be the card base. That's a very busy pattern, but it's still kind of considered light. And pink, yeah, let's something softer. Now I'm going to kind of do the opposite thing in the opposite corner. So I can kind of repeat that pattern that I just did there. I like to lay it out like this. This is what I do when I'm quilting. I lay it out and decide, you know, which colors look good together so I can create an interesting pattern. Okay, this is dark, so let's do something lighter. And we'll do the opposite there. And I think that's a little bit darker. I usually go lights against dark, darks against light. I do that when I'm quilting as well. I don't know if I want to add that. That might be too busy. Okay, I need some more of this color. Definitely need more of that. I'm kind of repeating the top and the bottom, doing the opposite. Pink would be nice right here. So pink goes there and there. Now I just need to complete this middle row. All right, we've got 2 of those, 4 of these, only 2 of those. So I should use definitely one of these. I should use one of these. I should use one of these. Probably another pink. All right, let's see. I can get away with that. Is that too dark? Right there. These are kind of dark. We'll see if it works. Don't want the pink next to here, so we'll put the pink there. And there. Okay, once I've got my plan, and I'm sorry about the lighting. I don't have my regular light because I'm doing a photography job and my light is set up somewhere else while I'm working on an ongoing photography job. So this is a great way to use up scraps and at the same time make some special cards. I think they could be birthday cards, they could be anniversary cards, they could be sympathy cards, or even a thank you. With the right message, you can pull it all together. Nobody will ever know that it was made out of scraps. Because my goal is to use up all my scraps. I have them well organized now. If you saw my last video, everything is very well organized and in a form and a way that I can use them. So now I am endeavoring to use up all my scraps before I cut up any new paper. The only new paper I will cut up will be the bases, but with the base, you cut the paper in half and you make 2 cards out of it, so you don't have any leftover paper. There's another one. And I will just keep going with my colors to see how many I can create. So far I have 2. And I may or may not use the same background, but I'm just gonna work with these until I've exhausted my pile. Doing it this way helps me to balance out the colors so that I can be sure to have the equal amount of the different prints in it. Somehow it just makes it work. Light, so this has to be dark. I could do that. I could do this. But it's 2 of those in the same row. I don't know. It might work. I might change that. Let's do this. Okay, so I have only 2 of that, so we want one of these in the middle. Only 2 of this, we want one of those in the middle. We have only 2 of those, so we want one of those in the middle. We have 4 of those, we have 4 of these, only 2 pink, so we definitely need pink in the middle. I don't know what's next, so let's see how they fit. Need to have a light here, so a dark here. This has to be there because it can't be there. Oh, can't be this because that would be these 2 side by side. Well, I could put this here. This would not look good next to that. So, and this can't go here. So I guess we're not going to use that. Can't use pink. I guess it has to be this. There. And that's sort of the process of how I figure it out. Now we just got to glue it down. Okay, then I pair up the cards with similar colors and choose a background that will work for both. That way I can cut the paper in half and I will have used up the entire piece of cardstock. So I have not added to my pile and I will have all of these card bases. I do tend to do things in mass. And all of these cards are made with scraps. Here is another design. Can you see the embossing? This one I used a different embossing folder. I made a bunch of anniversary cards because I have a bunch of anniversaries in my family. And like 5 of them happen in December. I give out an anniversary card every year, and I decided to use the same message for all of them. But just each card is unique in its color arrangement. It's Marriage is a Journey good thing you get to bring your best friend along. Happy anniversary. And I do them all the same message because every year I send out a card and I don't want to send out a repeated message every year. So if I make them all the same, then I know that I haven't sent them that message before. That way I can send them a unique message each year. And this is just a lot like the other. And you could choose whatever embossing folder. So I glue the squares on first, and then I run the cover through an embossing folder, and then I embellish. And that is basically the pattern. So I've got enough anniversary cards. I also made a thank you card, and I embellished it a little bit differently. And with this one I had fun with. I was thinking of giving it to one of my granddaughters, whose birthday, well, is in spring. And so I decided to play with my flowers, my cutout flowers that were cut from scraps. And all of the sentiments were cut from scraps. A birthday card for a guy with a more simple embossing folder. And this one, I just put the big happy birthday words on it. And this one, I needed more contrast, so I just cut two, a darker color and a light, and I just offset the font so that it could be more seen. I really like to have contrast. Contrast is very important. When I do my sentiments, I always think about contrast, how the sentiment is going to be the center of attention. And what do I need to do with it? Here I put this on. I didn't like it by itself, but when I put it on the door, I was like, yep, that's the touch I needed. So I made 16 cards so far, and I used up the scraps that I chopped up. Now, all of these cards were made with scraps. The only new thing that I cut out was the cardstock, but of course with the cardstock you cut it in half and you make 2 cards out of it, so you're using up all the paper. So I did not add to my stash to make these cards. The prints came from a bin that has the printed papers. I'm trying to use up all the scraps, and these sentiments, they all came from my scrap pile. The flowers, I had them pre-cut. Remember this flower here, I had to cut it out, so I pulled from my scrap bin pieces from here to, like if I needed a burgundy or a purple flower, I would pull these scraps out to cut what I needed to make the embellishments for this. I did not cut out any new paper other than the cardstock for the bases, but with that you cut 2 and you make 2 cards. So you wind up using the whole 8.5 by 11 sheet. Well, there's a strip cut off, but use up the whole thing. So that I always try to make 2 cards of the same. See, 2 of these. And I want to show you one more thing. This is my scraps left over from the project. You can see that this piece right here came out of my little scrap bin. These pieces. These are not anything new. Nothing. I did not pull out any new full sheets other than the card base. So you could see the scraps that I have left. So what am I going to do with these? There really isn't much left of that. I'll just save this little piece. The rest of it will go in the trash. There's not much here. Butterflies would be too dark for butterflies, so toss that. Here, I don't know. I could cut some snowflakes out of that. I could get 4 snowflakes. That's it. So I think I'll do that. I can cut some more leaves. So I'll put the leaf pile. That's too small. This one here, we got strip there. That's the same thing. We'll add that to my strip bin, the shorter strip bin. Now we could get a little piece right here. Sometimes you need a color to back a sentiment, because you could put a small sentiment on, and sometimes you just need a little piece to frame it. So we can use that. All right, the rest of this trash. We will save this. That too can be useful for a sentiment. And that will go in my bag of larger, wider sentiment strips. Actually, I just got a box at the dollar store that I'm going to start putting those in. All right, here I could cut some butterflies. I think I will. I'll cut butterflies out of that. This is trash, and these are trash. I was able to cut up some things, so this stuff will go into the trash because I've used it to the max. And it's nice to have a bunch of things I could just run the whole paper through all at once. These were cut with a punch right here, so that's really easy, so it didn't take much time. But hey, I got some extra things to go into my little bins. And these, I thought they would be, sometimes a flower needs a center, and that's a good color for a center of a flower. I'll have left of the leaves. So this is what I was able to get. I like to have a variety of different color leaves. And this is my leaf collection. So I have no scraps added to my scrap pile today. And that is going to be my process from now on. I'm not going to let it pile up. I'm going to keep using my scraps until they are completely gone. And the little pieces will just go into the bins like this. So here's some ideas of using up your scraps, and this one is focused mainly on using squares. Next video, I'm going to work on making cards with strips, so you want to catch that video. I've got some cool designs that I worked weaving strips to make some cards. So I hope you got inspired with some ideas, and that you will consider subscribing so you can see how I use up my scraps and make beautiful cards even though they're made out of scraps. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.